So this poem talks about the death of a soldier and uses that to talk about the pointlessness of war, of life, question the point of life, and question the point of religion as well. So we see that in the title here of futility. For something to be futile, it means that it's pointless. It doesn't matter how much you do something, it's not going to work. That's what futility means. So it gives us this sense of frustration already of the persona, because of course if you're doing something repeatedly and nothing's happening, that's going to be quite frustrating to you. But also that sense of pointlessness and uselessness. So when we move into this first stanza, we have these words like move, gently, and touch. So move him into the sun, gently its touch awoke him at once. It's talking about the sun gently awakening the man. But we have the words move, gently, and touch are quite soft, and they talk about the tender treatment of this man, of this dead soldier. And this really contrasts to what we've seen in Dulce et decorum est, if we remember that the dead soldier is flung into the back of the wagon. So there's this contrast between flinging somebody and moving them, gently touching them. Yep. So this kind of tenderness. So the sun here is personified. It's the sun that's touching the man. So it's like this care of the natural elements of kind, and they're caring. The sun could also be here a metaphor for religion. So it's the light, move him into the light, so gently its touch awoke him once. So religion used to wake him up. It used to, care for him. It's quite tender. Then we have these squiggly lines that I've put underneath these words are about sound. So we have the sounds of awoke, home, half sown, awoke, snow, no, and then rouse and now, all using assonance, so that's the repetition of vowel sounds. And it has these long, soft vowel sounds. Yeah, so awoke and rouse, long, soft sounds. They sound quite tender, but yet they're despairing as well. They sound like someone crying out. Similarly, we have this word whispering, which is onomatopoeia, and also sounds like sounds soft and tender, but also pleading, again, whispering, please. We have him being awoken by the sun when he was at home, and the sun was whispering of fields half sown. Fields half sown here is a metaphor. A field being half sown, so it's half placed with seeds, it's half placed with life. Similarly, this man has only lived a half life because he's a young man and he's died, so his life has only been half. It's been cut short. Here, the word front is a reference to the war, so the things in green I've put as references to the war and to the man's death. So he's been awoken by the sun every morning. Even in France, he was awoken by the sun until this morning and this snow. This morning, the word morning could be a double meaning here, because you can think of the way that it's spelt there, morning meaning the beginning of the day, but you can also think of the word mourning as to be in mourning, to be holding grief for somebody who has died. And that's what's happening here until this morning and this snow. So snow is a really cold word. That's a contrast to the sun. Yeah, so the sun, and we usually think of warmth and sun as associated with life, and coldness and snow associated with death. So here we have the beginning of this death, this cold image. So if anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. So this last two lines are an appeal. They're appealing to the sun or to God to bring the soldier back. Please, please, if anything can rouse him now, please do it. And the kind old sun will know. That's really affectionate, that personification. Kind old son. It's also familiar. Kind old. Old is like I know this before. It's like a child deferring to a parent. Oh, they'll know. The son will know about this. The sun here is presented as all-knowing, which also connects it to God and the way people see God as being all-knowing as a force. So the tone so far of this poem, of this stanza at least, is quite calm and tender. But then we move to this one and we have this first word, think, which is an appeal to the reader. It's an imperative, which means it's a demand. It tells us what to do. Move in the first stanza, that's also an imperative. But you can hear the difference between the word move being quite soft and think with that hard K sound is more desperate. It's appealing to you. Please think how it wakes the seeds. So seeds here is an image of growth and of nature, which is why I've put it in yellow, and the beginnings of life, a seed. Then we have the sun woke once the clays of a cold star. Again, we have alliteration with that hard K sound, which emphasizes the harshness and the coldness with this cold star, and changes the atmosphere from the first stanza, which has that quite tender and soft sound, to this harsh sound of the K. Here, the clays of a cold star, I've put it in purple because it is biblical imagery. So the clay as a creation image of Genesis. So man being made from clay. So the sun once woke the clays, so the humans, of a cold star, of earth. So it started the life on earth. Our limbs so dear achieved, our sides full nerves still warm, too hard to stir. Saying if you can do that, if the sun can make the seeds grow and start life on earth, is it so hard to make a body that's still warm alive again? So here this limbs so dear achieved is talking about how hard we've worked for the human body and the perfection of the human body and how hard we work to bring up children. Here warmth, of course, with the sun, with the contrast to the cold of the star. But here, is it too hard to stir? So that's a reference to resurrection. Is it so hard to resurrect this person? Why can't it be done? That's questioning God. Do you even exist if you can't resurrect as you say that you've done before with this clay? Again, we have clay down here. Was it for this the clay grew tall? So this is war. Was it for war that the clay, the people, grew tall? Did we just do all this to kill him, to die? Is that why we've been put on this earth? This part here is very important. What made? Oh, what made fatuous sunbeams toil to break earth's sleep at all? Fatuous means foolish. So instead of being all-knowing, the sun is now foolish and silly. So it's this dismissal of this godlike creature of the sun. Here we have, oh, what made, depending on where you emphasize. So what made the sunbeams toil is like, why did it do it? But if you say what made it, that's what created it. So again, you're questioning that existence of God. Yeah, why, what, who made the sunbeams do that? What made it? Was it God at all? So it's got this tone of frustration. Also, through the rhetorical questions being used, I've put the question marks in red. It's incredulous, it's demanding an answer and emphasizing that pointlessness, but also making the reader question as well. Things to note in this poem is the para rhyme as well, so the half rhymes all the way through. Shows that it mirrors the lack of answers. It's not quite right. The rhymes don't quite fit. Just like the waste of life is not right. And maybe God is not quite right and God's inability. Also, the last line of each stanza is that little bit shorter than the rest of them. Again, the life is cut short. And the use of single-syllable words throughout. Okay, so there's a lot of one-syllable words, and it sounds simple. It sounds mournful, elegiac, in contrast to mental cases where we have lots of complex words with many syllables. So these are just a few things that you should be noticing in futility. So you should be noticing the biblical imagery. You should notice the contrast between the cold images and the warm images, the use of sounds to create atmosphere, the use of para rhymes, so the half rhymes, to create a feeling that it's not quite right, the cut short last lines of each stanza, the single syllable words, and the difference between the past tense and the present tense used to describe the sun's ability to wake things. Also, don't forget to do your whisks, please.